Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. And first of all, I want to thank very sincerely all of you, and there were many of you who issued expressions of concern, get well messages, really did the old heart good. You know, I must tell you, when you're lying in bed wondering if they're ever going to find you, a room, it really helps to cheer you up. So thank you all. There's no way that I could personally thank you all, but I just want to assure you that I read every message. I appreciated every message. No question that it was a great boost to my morale. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all of the details of my hospital experience. Other than to say, our healthcare system is in even greater crisis than I dared to imagine. I'll just give you a couple of examples and then I promise I will move on. We desperately, immediately need a new, much larger, modern hospital. It took almost 4 days of me lying in a stretcher in 6 different rooms before they could find a bed for me. That's how jammed. And COVID is not an issue anymore. Very few COVID patients. This is at the Civic, okay? Very few COVID patients. 4 days lying on a stretcher, not on a bed, in a stretcher, before they could find a room for me. And when they finally did, it was in 6 different rooms, including, by the way, the by now infamous, they call it the dome, I call it the tent. You may have noticed that new structure in the parking lot. It was built to accommodate the overflow from COVID. As I say, COVID is not a problem anymore. There are about 50 beds there, as best I can figure, every single bed jammed. And I asked one of the nurse supervisors, like, if we didn't have those 50 beds, what the hell would we do here? I mean, it's 4 days to find me a room. What would we? And she said, well, the waiting would be even longer. Just to give you a couple more examples, in the room that they finally did get me into was a converted conference room, not designed for hospital beds at all. No television available, no radio. And the only way to summon a nurse is they had a string rigged up and you pulled a string and somehow or other it rang a bell out in the corridor. Ding, 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 ding. And there's about 30 beds in the ward and every bed pretty well the same thing. You can imagine ding, 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 ding all night long. So forget sleep. But I must say this, that the staff were very professional with perhaps 1 or 2 minor exceptions, very kind, treated me very, very well, did the best they could. A couple of times I was overnight in a recovery room. I was not supposed to be there. They rigged up a place for me. And we're in the I won't bore you with it, but this is kind of funny. We're in the recovery room. This is where you go after the surgery. And you're only supposed to stay a brief period there, but I'm a day and a half because there's no beds, right? So I have to go to the bathroom. They don't have there's no wheelchairs, there's no crutches, there's no canes, there's no means of getting me to the bathroom. And I'm not going to do it in a bread pan. I just won't. So you know what they did? They wheeled in one of these, what do you call it that you, anyway, it's a toilet and they wheeled me off into the toilet with this thing all through. Anyway, it's great fun. Great fun.
That's one word for it. Great.
What do you call that thing? My mind has gone blank.
Like a wheel? Is it like a modified wheelchair?
What is it, Debbie? Commode. The commode.
Oh, the commode. Okay.
So wheeling. Everybody. There's about 20 people in the recovery room. They're all looking at me being wheeled in the commode because there's no wheelchair. How can you have a recovery room and there's no wheelchair, no crutches? Anyway, that's the situation. The staff did their best. Okay, really. The very, very best. There's no question about it. But just to give you another example of the desperation that faces our healthcare system. I met a wonderful person that has become a friend. My room, when we finally did get into a room, um, serious surgery. He had a biopsy, had a tumor. 14 days he waited in the dome. 14 days for results of the biopsy to come back. By the way, the dome, it's it's like being treated in Walco or Costco. It's noisy. It's clean. It looks to be clean. It's new, but the lights are never turned off. And there were apparently a number of Inuits there, and so we had 8 and 9-year-old kids about 2 o'clock in the morning playing floor hockey, and so there's no sleep. So he's 14 days to get a biopsy back. That's that, and then my other partner in the room, he was in the emergency ward, very serious problem. In the emergency, 14 hours to get admitted from the emergency. There, I'll leave it there, folks. If you don't think that our healthcare system is in crisis, if you don't think we need a lot more private healthcare, we need, we need clinics. For example, there's no reason why I should be able to go to a clinic and get my hip repaired. I shouldn't have to go to a hospital. If you want a new knee, you should be able to go to a center of expertise and have these centers. That's the answer. And they can be covered by OHIP, but the system now is just falling. I mean, and I must say this too. If you're a liberal and you support this government, you should hang your head in shame, because there's no question that the purely political decision to move the new Civic Hospital location from just across the street from the present Civic to where it is now is causing a delay of 3 to 4 years. So people will die. People won't be able to find beds. They won't be able to get biopsies. 3 to 4 year delay because of this, and the cost in the hundreds of extra $1 million. How much cost do you think the construction of this nature increases every year? If you delay construction 4 years, how much do you think that increases construction? Have a look at what happened to the library. So if you're a liberal and you support this government, you should hang your head in shame. That decision is costing lives. It's delaying construction 3 to 4 years. It's taking hundreds of millions of dollars away from healthcare, and it's removed from. But there's one other thing too that it just suddenly struck me. Big debate about the new hospital location now. They don't want a parking garage. You've got to have parking. So I just want to remind you of this. If in fact they had built the hospital where it should be across the road, you could use all the parking facilities that now exist at the present Civic. The big parking garage would still be in effect. So in effect, this decision on behalf of the Liberal government to move the site out of pure politics is not improving in any way the Central Experimental Farm. It's taking up more green space. You wouldn't have to have all of that parking if you move the new Civic across the road. The parking is already there. So this decision not only is costing lives, hundreds of millions of dollars, delay, et cetera, all of the inconvenience, it's taking up more green space than if they'd built it across the road. So much for you eco nutcases. Now, talking about eco nutcases. Bad decisions. This meeting of the so-called 20 to save the planet from global warming, this is nothing but high drama farce. Very expensive farce. Not one, let's be very honest, okay? Can we just be honest here? Not one single nation will ever come close to the targets that they're boasting about now at the summit. Not one, including Canada. Canada has never, including under the Conservatives, never come close to reaching the targets that we set. We will not come close. It is impossible. The only way to even come close is to essentially destroy the economy. And sometimes I wonder if that's not a good part of what this is all about, trying to destroy capitalism. Look, you're not going to be able to tax your way out of global warming. Canada is going to add billions more carbon taxes. Trudeau is obviously intent upon destroying Alberta and Saskatchewan, the energy industry. I mean, he's going to shut it down. He's certainly going to try. Further bankrupting the country, throwing thousands, tens of thousands of people out of work. And then you know what's going to happen? Justin Trudeau will skip off into the sunset. We'll finally get wise to him, boot his ass out, and he'll skip off into the sunset surrounded by all kinds of nodding great fans. I mean, looking still for selfies. The major problem is not that the great minds running the world these days are that they're actually coming up with a solution. It is that they are fixated on this idea of taxing our way into a cooler planet. There's been many years of failure. There is not one jurisdiction anywhere where carbon taxes or taxes of any kind have lowered emissions, including, by the way, in BC. Interestingly enough, one jurisdiction where the carbon emissions have declined a little bit is the United States, which did not subscribe to the Paris Accord. But we're not going. Look, let's be very honest again, okay? Just for the hell of it. China is never going to stop burning coal. They're installing, another 30 or 40 coal plants? India is never going to stop burning coal. They're not going to lower emissions. And what about Africa as Africa continues to develop? You don't think their emissions are going to go up? The answer is not. Very clearly, the answer is absolutely. Provide incentives to corporations to cut emissions. No problem with that. Good idea. But don't charge the people. Don't tax the people. You know what the solution here is? It's not taxation. It's science. Turn science loose on this. Excuse me. In my latest book, I have 2 chapters there about the experiments with CO2 emissions that are being carried out at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Berkeley University. At MIT, this is quite astonishing. For many years now, we've been able to extract CO2 from the atmosphere. And if you have SodaStream, you have that little container, that's CO2. It's been extracted. So we know how to extract CO2. And some of the places they're extracting and storing it, okay? So we know how to do that. The problem is that we don't know how, or we haven't designed a method yet to do it in large amounts economically. But guess what? I see there's a story today of all the nations in the world, Iceland. Iceland is now building a large plant which it believes will be able to extract and store or convert all CO2 emissions from that country. This is the wave of the future. It's not taxation. Turn science loose on it. Spend a tiny fraction of what we're spending on solar panels and windmills. Turn science loose. Design a method to extract large amounts of CO2 and convert it. Either store it. By the way, if you store it long enough, it turns to stone. Did you know that? It does. But what they're doing at MIT, they're adding other chemicals, other formulas. And in MIT, they have taken CO2, which is just a very weak acid, by the way. They have taken CO2 from the atmosphere and converted it into a usable jet fuel with no emissions. This is the answer. But we're all fixated. We're going to tax our way out of this. You're not going to tax your way out of this. The answer is do everything we can without taxing people into bankruptcy. But the answer is science. Turn science loose on this. John, got any comments yet on any of this?
Absolutely, we do. First off is a text in at 613-413-2217. Just a short hi to say, hi, I'm listening. Glad you're back. It didn't take you 4 years. Your newest follower and hospital roomie, Rick.
Oh, that's I have to tell you now, Rick is a great guy. He didn't know who I was. I don't know how long he's been in Ottawa, but we shared a lot. He's a history buff, so we shared a lot of experiences and understandings. So we struck a real rapport. And obviously, a lot of the nurses and doctors knew who I was, and so very quickly he caught on that I was, that some people knew me. So yesterday morning, now he just had very serious surgery. Yesterday morning, I get this excited voice, first thing in the morning. It's Rick. My old roomie says, "Oh, I just discovered all of your podcasts. I just listened to all of your September podcasts. You've got a new fan." So thank you, Rick. Good for him.
Yep. Another text in, Lowell. Trudeau will walk away into the sunset after he cripples the country like his provincial brother McGuinty did. Kath was asking what the average listener can do about it, so we're having a conversation about that. Write to your MPs, your MPPs. Ken was asking what this has to do with the Liberals, since healthcare is a provincial affair.
Well, and wait a minute, hold it. I don't know if you're just trying to be funny here, Ken. What I am talking about is the Liberal decision. This was purely a Liberal decision. John Baird granted the hospital board. Let me just go back a little bit. Obviously, people still are not aware. It was obviously for many, many years we've realized we had to get a new hospital. Civic Hospital is over 100 years old. And if you go in there, you'll see this, okay? So we realized we had to have a new hospital. So they appointed 12 people. This were engineers, hospital authorities, heads of hospitals, doctors, scientists, everybody say, where is the best place to locate a new civic hospital? Unanimously, all 12, that's unanimous, all 12 came back and said, right across the road. There is a vacant field. Now, by the way, the field is not vacant. We've been told, oh boy, they're experimenting with crops. That's BS. They're not experimenting with crops there. Maybe, unless the crops are dandelions. Look, across the way is a heliport. Okay, there is a large parking lot already there. These are for cars, or I guess for tourists visiting the farm. There is a road called Winding Way. Some of you may have gone there, along there. And then there's this big vacant field with footpaths going all through it. There's no crops being grown there. There are people strolling through. They have so many people have strolled through taking shortcuts. They've created footpaths. So John Baird says, we'll grant you this land because it's federal land. We'll grant you this land, $1 a year to build your new hospital. Hallelujah. This is great. They began plans to do it. Then along comes a new Liberal government. So among them, this was Madeleine Joly, our number one cabinet minister, right? This is a woman who really, really knows how to do her job. So along came and a couple of other local MPs said, well, wait a minute, hold it. This land on the farm was granted by the Conservatives. We can't allow that to happen. We can't go along with a Conservative decision. We've got to find a new location. So they totally scrapped all of the decision made by the experts. Everybody agreed this is by far the best location. And they turned it over to the NCC, which has no expertise in hospitals or healthcare or anything. So the NCC looks around. The NCC decides Tunney's pasture, filled with buildings. How long would it take to get them down? I mean, another 25 years. Then, so the hospital authorities might say, there's no way. The traffic, everything, it was all kinds of, everybody agreed, Tunney's pasture is no good. So then they said, look, build it across the street. That's where it should be. There's nothing worthwhile going there. Build it across. No. So now they're building it down near Dow's Lake. I'm just pointing out, this was a Liberal decision. Capital L, L-I-B-E-R-A-L. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Liberal decision. Delayed destruction by at least 3, perhaps 4 years. Extra cost, hundreds of millions of dollars. Going to take up more green space than it would if it was right across the road. And there are going to be many, many deaths. Delay, extra money. And not only that, it will be very inconvenient. The Heart Institute has just spent billions of dollars refurbishing, rebuilding, etc. They're not going to move. So now instead of having the Heart Institute and the Civic Hospital together, you're going to have, about a mile distance apart? This was great planning. That was a Liberal. Go ahead, John. More text coming in.
A reply to you from Ken. He says, I understand now. Thank you so much for clarifying.
No problem.
Yep. We do have some other comments. Want to get a word in here for Shields?
Yes, my good friends, Shields. Now, I'd love to get up there, but I've got to tell you, I'm kind of trapped in my house.
No doubt.
I had quite an experience. I'm not able to. We have 2 sets of stairs to get up to the main level of our house here, and I'm not moving out of this house. So we had to hire, in order to get my home, I had to hire a private ambulance, $350, but they were great. And they had, this is really fantastic. To get me up the stairs, I thought they would make 3 or 4 big guys and lift me up the stairs. No, there is a special chair. You sit in the chair with your back to the steps, and it's got tracks like a Caterpillar tractor.
Oh,
and
cool.
it actually walks up the stairs. In my case, it's 2 levels, walks them up. And so here I am, but I'm going to be stuck here for another few days until I can navigate stairs. So I can't get to. I'm supposed to be talking about Shields here. So in other words,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to be able to get off either to the butcher shop or the appliance store in Pakenham, folks. Give Shields if you're looking for appliance, and I keep warning you, we have a liberal government. Prices for appliances are going to skyrocket in the new year. Mark my words. We have the evidence of it, skyrocket. And a number of the appliances that you now can buy probably will not be available in Canada. So you're in the market for an appliance of any kind, large, small, medium, black, white, yellow, whatever color, whatever design. Shields has got huge warehouse. Prices are very good. Cost of operation a little lower in Pakenham than in downtown Ottawa, believe me. Shields. Check them out, shields.ca. Great folks. Yes, John, back to you.
All right. Anne says, yet our prime minister's only concern right now is how we're going to live 50 years from now. To hell with the quality of life in the present. Peter says, staff are great. They built giant hospitals, but nobody to work in them. Private citizens donate money for new equipment, but there's no staff there to operate.
No. Can I just, I have to, this is my personal observation. And talking with a number of nurses and supervisors, it does not appear to me that there is a real, certainly not a major shortage of nursing staff. There is a shortage of doctors. There is a terrible shortage of bed. There is a shortage of equipment. There is a shortage of space. But the staff, everywhere I went, I was in 6 different locations. With maybe one exception, we found that there were plenty of staff. I'll make 2 comments. One of the things, and I pointed this out, and I didn't get any disagreement. This is not the staff's fault. They are compelled to spend an inordinate amount of time at the computer. And very clearly, they are bogged down to a large degree with red tape. If they come to give me an aspirin, they've got to have a little. I have a little band on my wrist. They have a little thing, and they take. I guess they check the band, and then they've got to enter the aspirin or whatever the hell it is in the computer. When we were in the Dome, for example, about 50 beds, all of the nursings were all sort of centralized. And I watched there for about 2 or 3 hours. And I would say that most of the nurses or others, whoever they were working away at the computers and were not in looking after the beds. This is not their fault. I wanted this. They are, and I mentioned this with several nurses, and a couple of them said, "You're absolutely right. We're just totally bogged down with red tape." And that's one observation. There is another observation. I have to be very honest, and this is personal experience. I want you to understand. May not apply in every case. I also found a number of people who I would describe as not really critical to healthcare. Because I'm 85, they maybe thought I had dementia. So not once, but twice, someone would come to me, and he's got a big pad here, and he's writing down, and he's asking me questions. Can you count down from 30 in threes? Okay. And then the next question, do you ever see bugs? Honest to God. These are paid employees. Do you ever see bugs crawling a wall? At which point I got mad, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to answer this anymore. I clearly don't have dementia. And I said to him, it seems to me that you might be better employed elsewhere. I mean, obviously he's a skilled a healthcare worker. So I found two of these people. A social worker came to me one day asking me all kinds of questions, which they already had answers to, about, who was here and where their stairs and so forth. I never saw her again. Rehab on 2 or 3 occasions, she came down, spent about, I don't know. Anyhow, the staff, as I say, was great. I find them overburdened with red tape, too much time on the computers, and some people, not a whole lot, but number of people that are nice to have, but I really don't know how key they are to getting me and my friends better. So that I'll just say that this argument that we're understaffed, I'm having a little difficulty with that one. Okay, go ahead, John.
And what frustrates me, and what frustrated me the entire time you were in there, is there's not one person who can find someone of your age who struggles with technology and get you a phone or get your tablet connected, that seems like a fairly
Well,
simple fix to
yeah,
me.
I know you, and I appreciate the comments you made on that. I'm in the recovery room, and by the way, I would think that in the recovery room, and this is appropriate, I would say there were probably 3 nurses for every patient that was in there, at least most of the time. But the recovery room, there's no television, there's no radio, there's no phone, and you can't have any visitors. So you're essentially, in my case, if it were not for Facebook, I know I've been criticized for using Facebook. It was the only means of communication I had. I
Yep.
had no way of communicating with my wife or my daughters or anybody. I'm there. No phone, nothing. I mean, this was a day and a half. I'm totally incommunicado. You're quite right. Now, finally, a nurse had a cell phone, I guess, brought it over to me and let me use it a couple of times. But essentially, you're in there. You're out of touch with the world. Believe me. Found that a little. But once again, this is a situation. This is 100-and-some-year-old hospital. This hospital was never designed for modern medicine. Never designed for modern medicine. Everything has to be sort of jury rigged. Even the wiring, I understand, in many areas, not heavy enough to handle air conditioning, for example. All had to be jury rigged. It's 100-year-old business. Go ahead, John.
Andre says, the time spent on the computer tells others what has been given to you. I've done chemo, and they have to mark everything down. It makes Andre feel safer. Brett
I'm not
says,
denying that. I'm not denying that. I'm just simply saying that, I mean, I've been in a hospital 20 years ago, and I don't recall nurses being that bogged down. There obviously some paperwork's required, but just don't require them being all that bogged down on the computer. And by the way, I'm not telling you anything that most nurses won't tell you as well. Go ahead, John.
Breck, I believe, first-time comment from you. Welcome to the show. If you look at the Civic and other hospitals, floors used to be full of beds. Management made the decision to remove beds and rooms to make clinics. Hospitals can then apply for research grants to use with these clinics above and beyond their government finances. Peter says Biden and Trudeau are worrying about pronouns and carbon taxes. Meanwhile, China is building hypersonic rockets. Murray says we already built that plant in Estevan, Saskatchewan, and the world paid attention. Anne says China must be laughing at us. And Jennifer says, I'll start listening to your thoughts on global warming as soon as you stop taking your private jets to global warming summits. There you go.
I just want people to, I want people to start to get their minds shifting. The answer is not taxes. We've tried that for 15 years now. It's not working, and it won't work. Very clearly, we've got to perfect a manner of extracting large amounts of CO2 from the atmosphere. We can do it in small amounts. We're doing it now. So we must perfect means of extracting larger amounts at an economical cost. But that's just a matter of development. Hey, if we can send men to the moon, send rockets to Mars, we can figure out how to extract a minor gas from the atmosphere and make it inert. Come on. We can do that. Go ahead, John.
Last word to Rob from Carlton Place, who emailed Lowell at blasttheradio.com. He says, great to see you back, Lowell. 30,000 people at the COP26 telling us how we will have to live, and not one of them will ever have to worry about the price of a loaf of bread. Liberals want to tax greenhouse gases because, let's face it, according to liberals, the solution to every problem is bigger government and higher taxes. Hopefully, energy and food shortages will wake up voters, and we can start down the long path of trying to reverse this mess.
Science is the answer, folks. Turn science loose. Science is already working on this. Hey, here is this tiny, please do some research. Please. This is so important. Here is the tiny nation of Iceland has developed this large plant. The news is just out today. Large plant extracting large amounts of CO2. You can convert, CO2 is a weak acid. And they've already, at MIT, I repeat, found a way to convert CO2 into a fuel, a jet fuel in this case, that has no emissions. This is the answer. Extracted. We're not going to stop emitting. The only way we can stop emitting emissions is to shut down the economy, to bankrupt the world. And sometimes I wonder if a lot of this isn't really just the anti-capitalist move in disguise. Please research. You know what? Research MIT. See what they're doing there. Buy my book. I have a whole chapter on MIT. It's amazing. It amazed me what they're doing. Let me repeat. Last time, MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, is extracting CO2 from the atmosphere very easily, and it has managed to convert it into a useful fuel which has no emissions. There's the answer. It's not taxes, it's science. Thank you. We'll be back.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.